Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and here I'm in the Lake Garden, a Botanic Garden at Lago di Garda in Italy. And despite being situated in the foothills of the Alps near the Lake of Garda, this garden has a Mediterranean climate. Well, to me, the impression is pretty lush. Okay, this was quite a rainy year and I'm not familiar with the Mediterranean climate around Lago di Garda, but this is the first thing I can say. It's really nice and lush and full with water. Well, here near the lake, it's a freshwater lake and with a couple creeks nearby and a lot of irrigation canals and ponds and so on. It makes sense that it will be a very lush place. The garden has a pretty exciting history. Like at the beginning of the 20th century, a guy called Hruska bought a vineyard and an olive plantation here. Yeah, this is the northernmost area in the world where olives are grown commercially, and made a thing he called the World Garden. And then, unfortunately, like 60 years later, he died. The garden got neglected. 14 years later, the Heller Foundation from Austria bought the place and made it into a sort of a botanic garden / sculpture garden. Now it belongs to some real estate investor, but they have kept it as a botanic garden right now. Unfortunately, I'm not yet familiar with the climate and vegetation of Lago di Garda. This is my first real visit. So let's see what we can see, what we can deduct from it for the climate and vegetation of the surrounding area. And let's see what nice edible things we can snack. Well, if you think you can snack some nice bananas among those big banana plants, think again. Unfortunately, like pretty much everywhere along the lakes in the Alps, this is the dominant banana, Musabasio, the Japanese fiber banana. Recognizable by the pretty big plants, lush big clusters, and most important of all, the yellow flower buds, the yellow inflorescences, and the teeny tiny bananas which are not edible. And by the way, beautiful mansion in the background with the bougainvillea. I was told just a couple days ago that here in this area people don't cultivate the normal bougainvillea glabra, but some hardier species, because we might have Mediterranean climate more or less here, but we are still in the foothills of the Alps, so it's not as subtropical as, let's say, parts in Sicily or southern Spain. Some grapevine growing here, a very interesting grapevine. I don't see a label, but I see that it starts flowering only now. We are in mid-July. It's a little bit late for a grapevine to start flowering. And here another very interesting vine, the creeping fig. Here is more or less the northernmost area where I've seen this used commonly in landscaping, but you can use it all the way down to the equatorial lowlands tropics. Oh, Ganesha. Ganesha is being treated well. And here another interesting vine, the wisteria. Every part of it is toxic, apparently apart from the flowers, which some people say are edible, but be careful, I haven't checked this thoroughly yet. Another very interesting edible vine is the sweet potato. Here two ornamental varieties, one with pale leaves and one with purple leaves. Doesn't matter, they are ornamental, every part of them is edible. The leaves, the stems, of course the tubers. Oh, and you know what's just as edible? The taro. Nice big taro. Sweet potato and taro both are some of the important staples of mankind. Yeah, with taro you can eat everything. The leaves, the stalks, the rhizomes or tubers underground. Tasty stuff if you know how to cook it. If you don't know, you'll get in trouble with the oxalate. Here we have a very interesting indicator species, the cork oak. Well, firstly it indicates Mediterranean climate. It's one of the important trees of the original Mediterranean forests. But then it also indicates an acidic environment. However, here, well, okay, the gravel seems to be limestone. The surrounding mountains, as far as I could see, are also, most of them are limestone. Even a little creek coming down from the mountains was really white from calc residue. How can a plant that's an indicator for an acidic environment grow in this environment? Very strange. Also here some really huge taro. Oh, yeah. Pity Paolone is not here to explain all the taros to me. Paolone is a rare plant enthusiast and collector from the Lago Maggiore, another one of the major Italian lakes, and one of his passions is taro. He would be really excited here, and probably he would be able to tell me a lot about this thing. Funny enough, he doesn't eat taro. It seems he just collects it for, collector's purposes, for ornamental purposes. More Japanese fiber banana, but on the plan they have a Musa acuminata further up. Let's see if they are right or if it's just another Basio. Interesting. They've painted the dead palms white. I mean, after all, this is a Botanic Garden / sculpture / art / religious park. See Ganesha and all the other Asian things. Yeah, but it seems a lot of those palms are dying. This is the Himalaya palm, which is invasive in this part of the Alps. Get it? It comes from the Himalaya, a high mountain range, and is invasive in the Alps. Another high mountain range, makes sense. They grow everywhere in the forests around here. Actually, they are quite tasty. Of course, you kill the palm when you eat the heart, but with an invasive plant, this is not a problem. But I also read there is a butterfly that's causing them trouble. And I've seen a lot of dead ones here around Lago di Garda. It's possible it's the butterfly. It's also possible it's the drought of the last 2 years. Right now, everything is really lush. There's rain almost every week, almost every day. But the last 2 years were hard. And even such a well-watered place might have had some trouble. So I don't know, folks. Tell me, who killed the palms? The drought or the butterfly? A lot of bamboo here. Well, Paolone might not eat his taro, for some reason, I don't know why, but he sure eats the bamboo sprouts of a different species in his garden, and says they are really tasty, and he is harvesting quite a lot. Of course, now the season is over. He told me the bamboo harvesting season around here is in April. Now it's July, so I cannot snag a couple tasty bamboo sprouts. Well, apparently I have to cook them anyways. It is beautiful. The park is not cheap, but it is beautiful and nice and smelly. There's some very strong smell here. Unfortunately, I have trash in my other hand. Otherwise, I would try to find out, to smell what type of leaves or flowers, or flowers cause this smell. Because it's very strong and very nice. It smells a little bit like bug spray. Maybe somebody is using industrial amounts of bug spray here. The smell is covering a huge part of the park. Monstera deliciosa. It's amazing it can grow here. But can it grow to maturity and produce edible fruits? Yeah. Here the smell is getting weaker. There is also music in parts of the park, so maybe the smell is just some industrial stuff that it's being let into the air somewhere as part of this whole experience. However, here a bit of a disappointment, not an unexpected one, but still more Musa Basio in a spot where there should be Musa acuminata, the edible dessert banana. Well, it's not. However, we can still use the Musa Basio for many things. For example, again as an indicator. Look at that. There are a couple old leaves here, which have probably lived through the winter. And look at those leaves. Not much wind damage and no frost damage I can see. So the winter here probably didn't get any frost, maybe -1 degree or so, and not too much wind. Very, very interesting. Also here papyrus, let's see. Muza Cuminata, so 35. Okay, no, I'm still hoping to find some other bananas around here. Yeah, Paolone and also his friend Luca. His friend Luca, even in a much bigger, on a much bigger scale, are growing a lot of bananas near this other lake. Probably about 2 banana species and varieties and hybrids among them, trying to adapt them to the climate. So it is possible, just most people still don't know that. The camphor tree, also very invasive around here. And here the edible Canna edulis, edible mulberries, edible fish in the water. Oh, the garden can be dangerous in some spots. I like danger, especially if it's the danger caused by a beautiful garden. Soapwort. This plant is quite widespread throughout Europe, and you can use it as soap. Actually, in my opinion, in a survival or camping or any situation where you don't have soap and don't have a lot of water, this is superior to soap because it makes a bit of foam or lather, but this one is not as sticky and slimy as soap foam. So basically with with 1 or 2 handfuls of water, you can get your hands perfectly clean and also perfectly clean of the soap. Try this with most industrial soaps. Oh, and here a couple cultivars of the soapwort. My grandmother used to collect those. Here a purple one, here a more pale one, but those plants are not looking very good. Here again the wild version. Nah, sorry folks, my grandma's soapworts look much better. More giant taro, and also again a strange dichotomy. Tropical taro next to Pinus mugo. This is a pine which grows above the actual tree line. Basically there is one tree line in Europe for the tall trees and then another tree line for this 3 to 4 meter tall shrub of Pinus mugo. And then above it there is, actually the area of the low grasses and low shrubs. But because of this thing, basically you have to talk about the double tree line in Europe. But it grows here together with taro and other things. Yeah, I still cannot completely grasp the climate of Garda because I just arrived here very recently. For now, to me it looks really lush and subtropical. But this can happen in some alpine valleys, even in areas with really cold winters. So for now I'm a little bit at a loss with explanations for what I see, except that I see soapwort here, and except that the underside of those things is more stunning than the upper side. Did I mention Osmunda regales, the king fern, and here a naughty satyr. Oh my god, can I show this on YouTube? Tree ferns, Dixonia and other related genera. But why do most of them don't look so good? They are alive, but their fronts are very short, meaning they must have died for some reason. Basically, they are supposed to look like this, even more lush than this, but they are supposed to have big fronts. What happened here? Also with this one. No, they are not supposed to look like this. And I saw some at Lago di Garda, at Lago Maggiore yesterday. They were a lot lusher and looking a lot better. What happened to those ferns, folks? A nice hydrangea collection, still in season. Beautiful, very beautiful things actually, but I don't know any edible or other practical use, medicinal or technical or something else for them. They're really beautiful ornamentals, but I like to know useful things also about every ornamental. Tell me, if you know what you can do with hortensia, or it's also called hydrangea. Well, I totally know what you can do with St. John's wort. You harvest this during the sunniest parts of the year. You drink the tea in winter, or use the oil in winter. It helps against winter depression by increasing the susceptibility of your skin for sunlight. However, if you touch it too much now in summer, you'll get the most horrible sunburn, because remember, it increases the susceptibility of your skin for sunlight. Right next to it, Plantago major, another important herb and also medicinal plant. You can use this on all wounds on your skin and a lot of other things, and you can also eat it as a salad or vegetable. See this thing here which looks like celery? Yeah, it's also a little bit phototoxic. Most of the celery relatives are. Yeah, this thing, what was the name? Egopodium podagraria. When I was young, there were still a lot of Germans alive who had seen the hungry years after World War II. They hated this thing. It's a weed in gardens and orchards and so on. And it's edible, but it has a very strong celery, parsley-like flavor, carrot-like flavor. And those people for years, they had to eat this every day, because even though 60 million Germans were eating it because they were starving, they couldn't exterminate it, but it was often the only food left. So a lot of them don't really like it, because it's a weed in gardens and they had to eat too much of it. This stuff is quite invasive in the Mediterranean. It's all over Malta. I love it. I mean, yeah, a lot of invasive plants are beautiful ornamentals. Whenever I see it, I'm happy, but I know it's invasive. Oh, hi bunnies. You're invasive too. American turtles, very invasive in Europe. Also very edible. You are lucky today. I'm a vegetarian. And here the papyrus. Every human society is usually based on one main plant or one main animal, and the Egyptian society was based on the papyrus. They would make paper from it, but they would make everything else from it: clothing, shoes, everyday objects. They would use it for building, they would eat it, and so on and so on. And then it became extinct in Egypt. Imagine, must have been about of the scale of the Native Americans losing the bison. And now they have found two tiny populations of papyrus in Egypt, probably floated down the river from Central Africa some time ago. But can you imagine, you base your whole society on papyrus and then it becomes extinct? That sucks, man. Oenothera bienes, very important plant for foraging. I guess I can eat one of the flowers which are already past their prime. The leaves are edible. The seeds are supposed to be good, but for me it's just like chewing sawdust. And the most important edible part is the root. Actually, it was used as a root vegetable in Europe before potatoes took over. It also comes from North America, but it arrived in some parts of Germany and other parts of Europe before the potatoes. Now it's more considered an invasive weed, but back then it was considered as one of the most nutritious foods. It was called bacon root, because when you cook it or bake it, it gets really pink like bacon, and when you are really poor and hungry, you can pretend it also tastes like bacon. You can also pretend it's more nutritious than bacon. Oh, hi Medusa, you made me rock hard, and I guess everybody who sees this Medusa just takes one snake head as a souvenir. Let's not do this. It's a beautiful stone sculpture. Took somebody probably weeks to create it. Advancing on narrow mountain paths above the precipice and the lake beneath. However, I don't like those metal bars so much. If you fall here, you will hurt yourself enough even without being impaled on this metal. I guess the metal is to prevent the turtles from climbing up. Yes, turtles can climb rocks just like alligators. Turtles are quite good at climbing, but I guess with this mesh attached to the stuff, they are not good enough. Oh, and I totally know what this is used for. Haha! Vitex agnus castus, the chest lamp, a symbol of Christian monasteries, the monk's pepper. It's the opposite of Viagra. It makes you, lose all desires and the physical ability to perform them. That's why it was fed to monks a lot. Nowadays, it's being used for a lot for medicine for women, for menopause and menstruation, and a lot of female problems, because it will give you a healthy female hormonal balance. It will give you a healthy female hormonal balance, no matter if you're a man or a woman. So logically nowadays it's used for women. Oh, maybe we can use this in transition. Well, back then it was used for monks. It was also a sort of medieval transition. Oh God, I almost wanted to film this Italian lady and comment on the style of the statue, but it was a real lady, good that I didn't film her. I always forgot the name of this little cassia. Usually I see it growing more like shrubs, but here it's being raised on a little stem. The fruits are edible, but here in the north I've never seen well-developed fruits. And also behind it, quite a small, not so healthy looking Sisyphus tree, also known as the Chinese date. It's much frost hardier than date palms. If you want to have a date-like fruit growing in cold areas, grow Sisyphus or jujube. You can grow it all the way into Russia and Canada. Here we have a proof of Mediterranean style climate, or at least some sort of subtropical climate. A citrus tree. Most probably this is the so-called bitter orange. They are very hardy, and they also don't require a lot of care like spraying and so on. Beautiful healthy tree, 5 meters tall, looking really healthy. Growing here without much protection. The area is a little bit sheltered, but not too sheltered. Is there some water nearby? Well, there is not too much water nearby, so no specific protection, but this thing manages to grow here in the foothills of the Alps, hundreds of kilometers north of or maybe 100 kilometers north of the Mediterranean, like this. This is impressive, and it's fruiting pretty well. Oh, those are some really beautiful specimens of Hibiscus syriacus. The Syrian hibiscus, coming from, you guessed it, the area of Syria, and also being the national flower, yes, you guessed it, South Korea. Don't ask me how it happened. I think the European colonizers collected this thing in the area around Syria and brought it to many parts of the world, and the Koreans liked it so much they made it into their national flower. Well, the flowers and fruits are edible. Actually, in my kindergarten in Sofia we had a couple, and Sofia back then experienced frosts of minus 30 degrees and so. It's very frost hardy, being from the mountains of Syria, probably not from the coastal areas. And in our kindergarten, the adults would tell us that this is toxic, but we would call the fruits little cobs of corn, and we would eat them. You can also eat the flowers. This one is not going to be producing fruits. Look, maybe it ate too much of the monk's pepper. It still could be possible. It's almost castrated. Look, most of its sexual organs have turned into petals, but there is still a stigma, and on some of those petals, or petal-like organs, let me show you, there are still parts of stamens. Good stuff. Usually listen to the adults. I don't know why we didn't listen to them about this thing. Maybe because it was just the kindergarteners telling us it's toxic. Whenever my family taught me something it's toxic, it was good to listen to them. Like they said, eat the white and the pink acacia flowers, but never eat the yellow acacia flowers. None of those 3 plants was actually an acacia. The white one was the black locust, here an ornamental form of the black locust. The red one was another locust, probably Robinia neomexicana, and the yellow, what they called the yellow acacia, was Laburnum anagyroides, a deadly plant. But my family never told me that those things are toxic, so we ate them, despite what the kindergarteners told us. We were right, they were wrong, but it could have been the other way around, so be careful, folks. Listen to your kindergarten nanny. She knows many things better than you. Here an ancient specimen of the laurel cherry. Western science says the fruit are toxic, but the area where they come from, around the Black and Caspian Sea, people have been eating it for thousands of years. I know people who say, one of them said, my granny, she used to eat like 2-3 kilograms a day, and she lived to be very old. So yeah, in this case Western science was wrong. My God, this is wonderful. Look what I saw here. Wow. Luca is growing this outdoors, but this one is bigger than Luca's plant. Look at that, folks. You know what this is? White sapote. This is a Mexican fruit, a super tasty fruit growing here in the Alps. Let's see. Are there any signs that they are digging it out for the winter? Actually, no. There are a lot of weeds around. It's still not impossible they are digging it out for the winter. But I think they are leaving it out here. That's amazing, folks. That's amazing. And here next to it, some bananas. Those are fresh. Well, no, the yarrow here is freshly planted. The bananas have probably been planted this year because there are a lot less weeds here. Is this Musa ventricosum maurelii, or is this something else? I mean, they grow single like Musa ventricosum used to do it, but they've been planted a short time ago. Could it be red tiger? So folks, tell me, what is this banana here? Beautiful ornamental banana, but what is it? Hi folks, this is all the fruit. I can still not believe it. There is a white sapote growing here in the valleys of the Alps near Lago di Garda. Yeah, seems to be the normal white sapote, not the woolly leafed sapote. Near the not very far away Lago Maggiore lake, I found a collector, Luca, who also has a couple sapote trees, some of them growing outside, but I think his might be the woolly leafed sapote because his leaves were very woolly underneath. Well, the wool here is from aphids, it's not part of the plant, as you can see. Many of the leaves are not woolly underneath. This is a plant of the Mayas. This is a fruit tree of the Mayas and Aztecs. Amazing. It's growing here in Lake Garden at the shores of Lago di Garda. Yes, you can see Lago di Garda over there. Lago di Garda is situated at the southern edge of the Alps. But, well, all those South Alpine lakes, they have a very strange, almost subtropical climate, much milder than, of course, the surrounding Alps, but also much milder than the Po Flat, which is situated right south of them. But Lago di Garda is special because it has a more Mediterranean climate, while the western lakes have a more Atlantic climate. And so here is a pretty much 4-meter tall white sapote. You know, we often hear a lot of climate tolerances for a lot of plants, but we don't see them in corresponding areas in Europe. But often the reason is that they haven't been introduced yet. So this is a white sapote. Yeah, Casimiroa edulis. It's not the woolly one. What was the woolly? Casimiroa tetrameria. And let's see, Luca had a couple young fruits a couple days ago. This one. Can we spot some fruits? Or flowers, at least? No, I don't see anything. still impressive that this tree survives to 4 meters. This is already a couple years old. Of course, I don't know when it was put into the ground. Maybe it used to be in a pot and was put into the ground when it became too big for the pot. This is a very common practice. A lot of people do it. 99 of those plants die. Basically, you don't want to kill the plant, but it's too big for the pot or for your flat, and then you plant it somewhere out. 99% of those freeze. But the remaining 1%, I must come back here in 5-6 years and see if I can harvest white sapote fruits. They are one of my favorite fruits. They are big and taste like vanilla pudding. So folks, this was a white sapote tree growing here in Lake Garden near the shores of the Lago di Garda in the valleys of the foothills of the Alps. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful and incredibly fruit-rich area of the Lago di Garda. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Edible daylily. Yummy, very tasty and very spicy flowers. I like them. Also here, well, you could also eat all those malvaceae here. They're relatives of the hibiscus. And here another hibiscus, you could also eat this, but let's not overdo it. What is this thing? Seems to be a Chinus or pepper tree. But which one? It's definitely not Chinus mole. I also think it's not Chinus terebintifolius. It looks a lot like Chinus terebintifolius, but oh, and look at that. I wanted to grab the invasive Japanese beetle, but it escaped me. Okay, the fruits look like Chinus. The leaves also look a lot like Chinus terebintifolia. Oh, come on, focus. But I think it's not Chinus terebintifolia. The leaves are too... The rachis is too winged, and this stuff is too woolly, too hairy. Here, from nearby the flowers and fruits. What is this, folks? My guess is it's a Chinus, but which Chinus? Lagarströmia indica, a beautiful flowering tree or shrub in this case. It also usually flowers during the tourist season. Now I only see the buds. Another thing that a couple decades ago nobody would grow in Germany. But now it's spread even to there. But here in Italy it has been a staple in gardening for many decades. Beautiful agapanthus, and I always forget the name of this cyperus. It's a papyrus relative, but what was the name? It's very common as an ornamental. My parents had it when I was a little kid, and actually I would often damage it and get into a lot of trouble for that. Another beautiful edible malvaceae. Beautiful big flowers. European dwarf palm, the only palm native to the European continent, to the European mainland, and by a margin of thousands of kilometers the northernmost wild palm populations in the world. The northernmost are in Liguria, maybe 100 kilometers south and a couple of 100 kilometers west of here. Nowadays, of course, you have a lot of invasive palm populations, especially here in the area around the alpine lakes. But when it comes to wild ones, this is the only one of Europe. Big holm oaks, Quercus ilex. Maybe the most important climatic indicator for Mediterranean climate. I like to say it, it's really strange. The Mediterranean is one of the most biodiverse areas in the world in plant diversity, not in animal diversity, but in plant diversity. It compares to the most diverse and most giant rainforest areas like Amazon or Congo or Southeast Asia, which is very strange because everywhere where you have Mediterranean climate, it's dominated by one single species, it's holm oak. 98% of the vegetation of the Mediterranean area and Mediterranean climate has been dominated by this thing for thousands of years. And yeah, even despite this, we get here a plant diversity comparable to the most diverse rainforest areas. Wherever you see this is Mediterranean climate. It has been planted also in a lot of other sub-Mediterranean and oceanic and zone climates. But when you let nature take its course, natural selection, this thing will come on top in Mediterranean climates. In other climates, yeah, if you plant it, it will survive. But if you leave it for a couple thousands of years, it will get outcompeted by other plants. But still, you can use it. If you can plant it somewhere, the climate is at least similar to the Mediterranean climate. But if it dominates the natural vegetation, it is really Mediterranean climate. And here around Lago di Garda, I said we have pockets of Mediterranean climate. And this is where this thing has natural populations, the northernmost by far, anywhere in the Mediterranean and surrounding areas. Another plant, well, which is very common in the Mediterranean, but I've rarely seen it here in the lakes. And this is the first time I've seen it away from an island. That's why this is very important for me. This is the carrot. The carrot, for thousands of years, an important staple in the Middle East and Mediterranean. This is St. John's bread. Basically, when they say that the prophets were living off honey and locusts in the desert, well, the locusts are the fruits of this thing, and the honey is, well, inside the fruits, although it's also possible that the prophets were also eating the locust insect. And it's also possible that the honey refers to manna, who knows, but basically this plant, that's why it's also called St. John's bread. St. John was also in the desert for at least 40 days living off this thing. Very important survival food and also very important staple in the Mediterranean. But here in the lakes, I've only seen it at Isola Bella and Isola Madre in Lago Maggiore. Now I'm glad that I see it here on the coast, because of course the islands have an even milder climate than the coastline. So here I've seen it on the mainland. Very important, because it's actually kind of frost sensitive. So here in the top part of the garden is a citrus grove. I would say this is again some type of aurantium, but aurantium, there are so many varieties, it's really difficult to say. Even things with leaves that look very different can be aurantium. What is this? Is this an aurantium? Is this a mandarin? The leaves look completely different. This tree looks like a lemon. Yeah, there is also a fruit which looks elongated like a young lemon. Or here this one. Oh, what is this? Is this a really huge kumquat? Why don't you have labels, folks? Yeah, I think this is some really huge kumquat variety. But which one? Oh my. What is the next tree? Seems to be some smaller kumquat variety. Now from the other side, those seem to be lemons. I think this here is also a citrus aurantium, or maybe even some strange mandarin. Your guess is as good as mine what this is. Could it be some small grapefruit? Here's some third kumquat variety with elongated fruits. Here I think we have again a bitter orange. It seems like they have taken the most frost-hardy citruses here, like different bitter oranges, different kumquats, a couple lemons and other things from the area adapted to the climate. In this climate, a lot more citruses should grow. I think they are playing it safe here. Yeah, just like with the bananas, they are playing it safe. They have this basio everywhere. By the way, do you know that the height of the basio of the Japanese fiber banana is a climatic indicator? In areas where it doesn't freeze to the ground, like here or the Mediterranean coastline, they are very tall. See this lady there? Maybe she is 160, 5 foot something. Those plants are about 8 meters tall. Well, for example, I have seen plants of this size in Pisa on the Mediterranean coast. However, in Well, also in very sheltered areas of Rome, they get almost as tall. In Firenze, which is in Tuscany, officially also Mediterranean, but they freeze down somehow, they're a little bit smaller, maybe about the size of this plant here. In Germany, they would be about the size of this fruiting plant here. However, in Bulgaria, in the cold Balkans mountains, they would hardly ever reach the size of this one. Probably the pseudostem would be about this high. Why? Well, because of course in the Balkans mountains they freeze down to the ground. They need to be protected. The pseudostems have to be chopped off. They have to start anew every year. And because even spring and autumn can be quite cold there, the time for fast growth is not very long. In my part of Germany it's a bit milder, so sometimes the pseudostems will survive, but the leaves will pretty much always die. So they have a bit of a head start, all the nutrients in the pseudostem. Yeah. In Firenze, which is more or less Mediterranean, in Florence, they have a bit more of a head start. Sometimes even leaves might survive. But here, as you can see, they still have the old leaves. So they basically start already with the fully developed plant. In Bulgaria, they have to start from the ground and have to start much later. Here they start with the fully developed plant and can photosynthesize and develop most of the year. And so you end up with such giant things. So yeah, Musa basio, the most frost hardy banana of the genus Musa, high edible goldfish. Yeah, when people want to play it safe, they plant this banana instead of more interesting bananas. I'm happy it looks like a banana, but I'm always a bit disappointed when I see it. However, even if you see this, you can use it as a climate indicator. With those giant Musa basio, even with the leaves of last year surviving, I would totally plant a dozen other bananas here and a couple dozen different citruses and a dozen different avocado varieties and dozens of other exotic trees, because this shows me that the climate here is exceptionally mild, especially for an area in the Alps. Another good indicator that the climate is very mild. Here we have the Chinus mole, the Peruvian pepper tree. And I saw something which had the label Peruvian pepper tree but wasn't, and yeah, I remember I thought the leaves don't look exactly like it. Yeah, those look like Chinus mole. This is Chinus mole, I don't need the label for it. The other one had the label Chinus mole, I've forgotten which garden, but was not Chinus mole. And this one is producing pink peppercorns. However, here you have green peppercorns and here peppercorns which have already rotted. I guess none of those are good for in the right stage for being used as a spice. And somebody told me that the non-edible leaves can actually be used for cosmetics and essential oils and such things. And this thing is growing here outdoors, so it must be really frost hardy. Well, it is quite frost hardy, but not but it doesn't like cold wet conditions. So I think the combination of Garda having a very mild climate and having a reasonably dry climate is the reason this thing can grow here. Yeah, Chinotto. Believe me or not, this is also a variety of the bitter orange, even though it looks completely different. Very popular for bonsais. And here they are playing it safe again. Big spurges, aloes, different cacti. Here an opuntia. Oh, here somebody wants to be funny. They put the hibiscus flower on the aloe. They might trick somebody else, but not us, right, folks? Agave attenuata, plumeria. Oh, here a nice bombacacea. I would really like to see half of those things experimented with outdoors. Mother-in-law cushion might also work outdoors. Yeah. I think as soon as they get, am I allowed to collect the elk antler or not? Well, I think when those things get a little bit bigger, some of them will be put outdoors, and then they'll have to try whether this stuff works in this climate or not. Here a bonsai collection, different junipers, a fig. What is this? Some ash, another ash, Fraxinus ornus. This is native to the area. Beautiful. Here an olive tree. Because of the Mediterranean climate, Lago di Garda is the northernmost olive growing area in the world. I know some people will write in the comments, there is an olive grove or an olive tree in our area. Yeah, now with climate change a lot more is possible. And even in other areas, yeah, a lot is possible. But for sustained, continuous, large-scale olive cultivation over millennia, Lago di Garda and the surrounding areas are the northernmost. Pineapples! I'm sure those are gonna go into the ground. Wait, they look a little bit strange. Are they even real? I guess they are real. Despite looking very strange, they are real. Okay, those will go into the ground. Maybe they'll die in the next winter. But, yeah, they will contribute at least for some months to the subtropical ambiente here. And who knows, maybe they will survive the next winter. Maybe they will ripen in the next year. Who knows? I mean, such things, you try. I just told a young guy who was asking me if he should try some really crazy, impossible things. I told him, well, you know, if you know what's possible and what's impossible, you'll have a much higher success rate. But you have no idea what's possible and what's impossible. You'll fail a lot, but from time to time you will be able to achieve the impossible. Now he's a little bit older and wiser and mostly trying possible things, but still, I think at some time he will manage something impossible. Well, here's some sucas, young sucas. I think they will do quite well here. About coffee outdoors, I don't know. I would like to see it around here. It's already been acclimatized in the warmest parts of the Mediterranean, like Andalusia and so. I think it could grow in Liguria, but here, outdoors, I mean, they have enough pots. Put 2 or 3 plants outdoors in a very protected place. Protect them a little bit in winter, and maybe you'll achieve the impossible here. Right, brother? Huh? What's your opinion on this, huh? Huh? Why are you not answering, huh? Guess this is where all pots go in winter. And this is the heating unit. Interesting. Also, some of the architectonic details are quite nice. Like tying this bamboo to the wooden doors with nice palm fibers. Yeah, I approve of that. Well, of course it's attached with nails, but still, don't those palm ropes look nicely? And here, I think, they don't have nails. Haha, I fooled you, didn't I? Under the palm ropes they have wire, but still, no, it's nice, it's beautiful, especially as a background for the bonsai collection. Speaking of bonsais, that's a massive one, and it's being worked really hard. The palms are getting crazier and crazier. Maybe it's some sort of mimicry or camouflage. Yeah, but they are dying. Okay, I mean, they're invasive plants, but if they die around the lakes, thousands of parks and gardens will lose their ambiente. Oh, hello, little blackbird. You got one big worm here. Physalis alkikingi. Another plant we were taught is just an ornamental and toxic and non-edible. I still ate it, but in small amounts and always with a bad feeling because I might not wake up the next morning. It's one of the most beautiful Physalis, not one of the tastiest ones, but I think very nice and hardy varieties can be developed. This can grow for decades without any care, even in cooler Central European climates. Oh, this tiny bamboo is blooming, means it will die soon. They bloom only once, usually. Looks like the carob is fruiting quite nicely here. I mean, only one branch out of the whole smallish tree, but still. And the fruits look of normal size, seem to be well pollinated. Nice. I'm still wondering whether to consider this a more amateur-like botanic garden or a really high-class park. Would rather go with the second one. It's like the most high-quality park you can imagine. It's not really a botanic garden. It doesn't have specific collections. It's not arranged by some scientific means. A lot of the names are written wrong on the handout here. By the way, pawpaw. If you want bananas but live in a cold climate, plant pawpaws. They taste the same. It is an incredibly beautiful, incredibly intricate garden. And yeah, not everything has to be scientific. Definitely worth visiting. Even if I'm not sure whether to call it a botanic garden, it's definitely worth visiting. Yeah, the price of €12 is quite hefty. Oh, here, by the way, nice big strawberry bush. It's not really a tree. And an oldish olive. Remember, there was an olive grove here before this garden was created. Yeah, kind of a hefty price, but okay. No, for this here, by the way, a big myrtle, another Mediterranean fruit shrub. Yeah, for this experience, it's definitely worth the money. I can definitely recommend it. It's a beautiful garden. I learned a couple things about exotic flora around Lago di Garda. Would be interesting how I can confirm or change my opinions about some hardiness things here when I know the place a little bit better. Here, by the way, a couple big oleander trees. Oleander grows bushes in river bottoms. They are native to the Mediterranean, but not to the Garda Lake. Incredibly toxic, but also incredibly beautiful. And because they don't need much care and flower during the tourist season, they are planted everywhere. And unfortunately, there are cases of poisoning. Even if people make a campfire out of oleander or skew their sausages or their marshmallows or whatever they want to barbecue on oleander sticks, they can end up in hospital and worse. Yeah, but definitely a beautiful garden. I don't know if I should suggest to them for me to correct the names on their handout, because nowadays when everybody is googling every name they can find, it's a bit embarrassing when they see how many things were written wrong. But I think this is a small problem. I also love gardens with nice running fresh water streams. It's a detail I really love. Beautiful garden, really. So folks, this was the Hellar Garden, maybe the most famous garden at the shores of Lago di Garda in northern Italy, a piece of the Mediterranean and the subtropics in the valleys of the Alps. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful and incredibly fruit-rich area of Lago di Garda. And of course, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.